With all the datasets in Logos Now and Logos 7, it can sometimes be confusing knowing exactly how to construct a search. On the forums, someone asked recently if they could find all the places in Scripture where God struck someone down with a sickness. The resulting syntax is quite complex of at least one of the ways to do this because there's so many different datasets which could be useful in this query. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I would go about building a query like this, which basically is an iterative process, experimenting a little bit, finding out which tags are used and how best to search, and slowly building a query over time. So I might start with a very simple search in English. You can see I'm searching the NIV. We're looking here for times where God strikes somebody down with a disease or with an illness. So let's search for illness, comma, and then use some synonyms. Disease, sickness is another synonym, just in English. So let's just search for that and see if we can see any examples of what we're looking for. And you can see here, Genesis 12:17, the Lord inflicted serious diseases on Pharaoh. So that's exactly the sort of thing that we're looking for. So what we can do now is we can look at this verse here, Genesis 12:17, and see what the tagging is, and then we can construct our search properly. So let's look at that. And I'm then going to open the information panel, which will be helpful to let me see the tagging. And what I'm particularly interested in is the word info section and the other references section. Now I've got my information panel set to update on click rather than hover. I find that easier, and it means that when I click on a word like diseases, it'll give me the information from here, but I can move my mouse around freely without it updating when I don't want it to. So what's our search going to look like? Well, we're effectively looking for two things. We're looking for an illness, and we're looking for something that God did. We want those two things to happen at the same time. So in simple English, this is not a valid search syntax. We might want to write something like illness, then the keyword intersects, which is a relatively new keyword in Logos, which allows us to find places where what's on the left-hand side, the illness, intersects with what's on the right-hand side, occurs in the same place. Doesn't have to be exactly the same length, but overlaps in some way. So illness intersects with God did it. Now clearly that's not valid syntax, but you understand the idea of what we're trying to achieve. And what we're going to do in this search is basically replace the word illness and replace the phrase God did it with something valid, some valid tagging that we can use in Logos. Okay, well, on the left-hand side, we've already determined that we could just use simple English words, illness, sickness, and disease. So let's put those in. You can see that I'm placing them in parentheses with a comma in between each one, and that tells Logos that this is a group here, and we're interested in only one of those words within here. We don't mind which one it is. We're not looking for all of those words in the same place. Just one of them is fine, and the comma indicates that. So that's a start. We can do better than that, though. We might want to search using Hebrew or Greek lemmas, for example. So on our right-hand side, you can see here that we've clicked on the word diseases, okay, which has been picked up with our search, and you can see that here's a lemma. Here's a lemma that we could use to search. So if I right-click on that lemma and then choose the lemma from the right-hand menu, I can then search all open resources, and I'm not actually interested in searching all open resources. What I'm really interested in is getting the search syntax I need for this lemma. So I can now copy that to the clipboard. I pressed Ctrl+C to do that, close this search panel, and place it in the search that I'm constructing. So I'm going to add another comma and then paste in Ctrl+V to do that, my Hebrew word. You can also see down the bottom that we have a sense here called plague. Now it would be useful to add that sense into our search criteria as well. But with senses, because they're organized hierarchically, it's always worth looking at a sense. So I clicked on that, bring up the Bible sense lexicon, and you can see here that the sense plague is actually a child of the sense disease, and disease is a child of the sense sickness. So rather than specifying plague, it would actually be better to specify sickness. After all, that is what we're looking for. So if you go down in this left-hand panel, you'll see those relationships specified here, and I can just click on sickness, and the Bible sense lexicon will update, but with sickness as the key term. So I've done that, and now you can see that sickness itself is a child of ill health or unhealthiness, and that certainly is what we're looking for. Physical condition is obviously too broad, but ill health or unhealthiness, that seems to be the right sense of what we're looking for. So we'll click on that now under relationships, and now we know that's the right one. It covers things like infection and injury. We can now search for that sense, and we can do what we did before. We can copy that to the clipboard and then add it in next to our lemma, again place in a comma, paste that in, and we've got quite a broad sense now of exactly what we're looking for. So that's the left-hand side, broadly sorted. We've got English words, we've got Hebrew words, we've got sense data. If we were in the New Testament, we could add Louw-Nida numbers. Maybe we can look at that in a moment. But we need to sort out the right-hand side of our query, the idea that God did it. So we're still looking at the information panel of Genesis 12:17, and you can see under other references there are various labels particularly that we might be able to use that would give us the idea that this is something that God did. And you can see immediately that there are two things that look as though they might be helpful. One is the semantic feature of divine action, and one is a miracle with the agent God. So those two things, it would be helpful, wouldn't it, to put those on the right-hand side of our search over here. So let's right-click on divine action, choose it in the menu, and then do search all open resources again. That search will run, and again we can see in the results these are things that God has done. That's exactly what we're looking for. Copy it to the clipboard, close the panel, and we now replace our English phrase with the propositional outline, divine action, and it's a section that we're looking for. Logos has included all of that automatically. I'm going to pop that in brackets so that when I add new search criteria later on, Logos knows to group them together. And now we'll move to agent. So we'll follow our normal pattern. We'll right click, but you can see that as we right click, on this occasion Logos is looking at simply the person God. It was God I right clicked on, and if I search all open resources, you can see that Logos is just searching for person God, not the label miracle. That's not what we want. So what we normally do of right-clicking and searching to get our criteria isn't working with this miracle label. It's too complex for that, with all these different types and patients and so on that we have here. So let's close that because it didn't work. So what do we do now? Well, if you're stuck, sensible thing is to bring up Logos's help. So let's do that. And I'm going to do an inline search at the top for the word miracle, and see if I can find out how to do these miracle searching. So as I look at, it's not the Miracles of the Bible interactive, that's not what I want. So let's see, searchable labels, here we go. Label miracle where agent is person Jesus. Well, that's very similar to what I want. So let's copy that, paste that into my search criteria. But I don't want person equals Jesus, I want person equals God. And you may remember that when I did the search from over here, then person God was what came up. So I just replaced Jesus with God in the example, and now I've got the search criteria here for miracle. So that was a little bit more difficult, but nonetheless relatively straightforward. I'll close that, go down a bit further just to see if there's anything else. One more thing here is plague. You can see that the word disease actually refers to plague, and as you can see from the hover menu, this is a biblical thing. All the biblical places, things and events are labelled in Logos, so maybe that would be something worth searching for as well. This would go on the left hand side of our search criteria. You remember, on the left hand side we're looking at sickness, and on the right hand side the idea that God did it. So the idea of a plague, that's a sickness, and that goes on the left hand side. So we'll right click on that, choose plague thing, search all open resources, get the syntax, it's very simple, copy it to the clipboard, close the panel, go back to the left hand side. Doesn't actually matter where you put it, but I'll move it to the end, put my comma in, and then paste it in with Control V. So we've got a fairly complex search criteria now. It's much longer than you can see on my screen. Let's run that and see what happens. I'm running it in the NIV. It'll take a few seconds to run, and you can see I've got 22 results in 19 verses, and all of these results so far look pretty good, don't they? That's exactly the sort of thing that we are looking for, and that's a very good start. And really it's all based on the tag-in that we found in Genesis 12:17. But we shouldn't assume that the tag-in will be identical in all of the search results, as there are different nuances maybe with the different punishments or diseases and so on. We're going to find different tag-ins. So what we need to do now is to look at some of these other search results to see if there's other senses or words or biblical things that we can use to extend our search even further. So let's do that. I'll bring up the next one, Numbers 11:33, and I'm going to click on the word plague here, and as I do that the information panel will update, and again I can have a look down and see if there's anything that I might want to add. I've got a sense of plague here, but we don't need to worry about that. If I click on the sense of plague, you'll see that's already covered, because if you remember, we're covering everything to do with sickness and so on, so we don't need to worry about that. But there is a Hebrew word here, makar, which sounds as though it's going to be useful to us. It may not give us any extra results, but it may do. So let's add that one in, because wounding on plague, sort of defeat and so on, it's kind of the thing that we're looking for. Search all open resources, copy it to the clipboard, and then paste it in. And if we go to other references, there's nothing there that's particularly different from what we had before. So I've got search result selected here from this little menu, which means I can press the down arrow to get to the next search result. Click on that to update the information panel. Now again, I've got a different Hebrew lemma again. This one's to do now with leprosy. So for the sake of completeness, let's add that one in as well. Copy it to the clipboard, close the panel, add a comma, paste it in, and as I go further, again, nothing particularly relevant here that's different. So let's go to the next search result, and now we're dealing with tumours from 1 Samuel 5. Again, we could perhaps put these senses in. Let's see if that sense is something different. Now again, that's covered in ill health, so we don't need to add that. Can you see how it's helpful to go back in your Bible search lexicon to find the root sense that's useful? But what we do see here is there's divine punishment as a cultural concept. Now we haven't had a cultural concept before, so that certainly looks like something that we could helpfully add. This would be on the right hand side of our criteria now. So let's add that in. We'll right click, choose the cultural concept, search all open resources. We get our search criteria, copy it to the clipboard, close the search, and then let's go to the end and add in our cultural concepts. So we've now got miracle labels, we've got cultural concepts, we've got semantic features, and all of those biblical things, senses. We've got a whole bunch of stuff now. That's going to broaden our search. Now, if you want something absolutely complete, you could keep going through all those search results and making sure there aren't any references or word information that you've missed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rerun the search now with these new information included. You can see that at the moment we had 22 results, but with this extra information, if I run the search again and just wait for a moment, you'll be able to see, hopefully, that we've expanded our criteria a little bit. Okay, so we're up to 73 results. You see that's made quite a big difference. So again, depending on how much time you want to spend on this and how much it matters to you that you get absolutely every reference, or whether you're just looking for most of them or the majority, will depend on how much time you want to spend in going through the different search results and checking to see if there are other things that you can add in. The danger is if you add in too much, you'll end up broadening the search and end up with lots of false positives. As I scroll through these results, you can see that there are various things in the results that all look helpful. A plague on God's people as a punishment to David there. The Lord afflicting a king with leprosy, a plague on Israel, again a plague on the people. You can see all these things are exactly what we're looking for. And therefore this search criteria is one that I've got confidence in. I did say to you that in the New Testament you might want to use Lau-Nida numbers. So let me just show you how that might work. There aren't many search results in the New Testament, but we can look at those that are there. So here's perhaps an example. Paul, I presume that is, on the road to Damascus, being blinded. So let's click on there, and you can see we have a sense of eye mist. I suspect that is not going to be too helpful to us. Let's take a look at it. Yeah, that's covered in disease anyway. We don't need to worry about that. And the Lau-Nida number, let's look at that. Now, Lau-Nida numbers are useful because they're grouped by semantic domain, which means words with similar meaning are grouped together. Now, I'm just going to open this in a floating window so you can see a little bit better, and then maximize it to fill up the screen. So you can see here that this Lau-Nida number 2440 is to do with seeing. Now actually that's not particularly helpful in terms of what we're looking for, because we're looking for illnesses or diseases and so on. So that's actually not much use. But let's see if we can see anything to do with punishment, or can you see here violence, harm, destroy, kill? Maybe some of those would be relevant, particularly maybe this sense to do with wounding. Maybe that semantic domain might be useful. Let's see if there are any others here. That looks like perhaps the most useful one. Let's just check under physical impact. Probably not what we're looking for on this occasion. Trouble, hardship and distress possibly might come in. Physiological processes, we've got one on sickness, disease and weakness here. So there are various semantic domains that potentially we could use. So let me dock that tab back again, and what we'll do is we'll right click on this Lau-Nida, which is not actually particularly one that's helpful because it's to do with blindness. It only actually occurs in X1311 anyway, but the syntax is useful. So let's copy that to the clipboard, go back to our search criteria, and this is going to go on the left-hand side because that's where the stuff to do with illness, sickness and disease goes. So I'm going to paste that in. I'm managing to put my comma, but I don't actually want the Leonida number of 2440. What I want, let's drag this over here to give me some screen real estate. I don't need the information panel anymore. Try again. And broaden this a bit so we can see what's going on. We're going to use the Leonida range of 20.12 to 20.30. So you can see what I'm typing in here, Leonida 20.12 to 20.30. And because I'm doing a range, I need to change the equal sign to a tilde character, which will signify to Logos that any number within that range will do. It's not the whole range that I'm looking for. Now, just to give you a bit of confidence that that is a valid search, let's just copy the number that we've typed in and go to another search panel and just search for that. And you can see that is working exactly as we'd expect. So that's fine. We've got the syntax correct. Go back to my Leonida lexicon. So I've covered harm and wound under the violence section. I now want to really cover the whole of this section here. Trouble, hardship and distress, which begins at 22.1 to 22.14. So let's put that one in as well. So I've copied my existing criteria. I'm going to paste that in, add my comma, change the numbers to what we've just been talking about. 22.1 through to 22.34, let's say. Okay, that might be a little broad, but we can correct it if it's too broad later on. Then we've got sickness, disease, and weakness here. So let's add that one. Paste it in. 23.142 through to 23.184. 23.184. So that's broadened our search with Leonida numbers. That tagging only exists in the New Testament. It's all keyed to the Greek text. We can rerun this search. It may give us extra information, it may not, but Leonida numbers are potentially helpful. Nowadays, with the new sense tagging that's been in Logos since Logos 5, Leonida numbers are not as useful as they used to be because the senses have overlap a lot with Leonida, but it's worth checking if you want to be thorough. So we previously had 73 results. Let's rerun the search and see how many we get this time, and particularly see if it's made a difference in the New Testament. So we've now got 88 search results, so 15 have been added through those Leonida numbers. You can see that a large part of them here, as I've gone down, have ended up in the book of Revelation, but there are others as well. Some of them, perhaps there's a bit of false positive here that's been added, but this was one that was missed earlier, and therefore it certainly was a useful thing to add those Leonida numbers in. Now, if you're worried that you've missed one and think, well, perhaps my search criteria is not as good as I thought it was, just do what we did before. Open up the criteria, the search results, show the information panel, and see what it is that we're missing. And you can see here that we had a sense of being worm-eaten. And if we right-click on that, it's A pretty unusual thing, as you can see, and in the Bible sense, lexicon not related to an illness or a sick. In fact, it's not related to anything at all. So that's why it got missed earlier. It's a unique word in the New Testament. You can understand perhaps why our criteria wouldn't quite have been good enough to catch something as unique as this, but now with the Leonida numbers, it is. So I hope that video explains to you how you can create what seem like very complex search criteria. We build them iteratively. We find a search result that matches what we're looking for. We see how that's tagged. We then search for that tagging. That gives us more search results. We have a look at the tagging there. We add more tagging into our search criteria, and so it goes on. And eventually we'll say, we've done enough. This is a good search. I'm happy with the results. And then we can move on. It'll be quicker when you get used to it and do it a few times, certainly quicker than it's taken in this video with all the explaining that I've done. But I hope you find that useful of a way of building up relatively complex search criteria iteratively, using the results that you found to make your criteria better next time round.